Big game at the weekend, Milan versus Napoli. Big in the sense that both managers, I would say, are under a little bit of pressure.
Yeah, just a bit. I mean, I think it's probably more pressure on Ancelotti, given he's been there a little bit longer. Just a tiny.
But that doesn't always make any. Isn't always the case in Italy, is it?
I think no. I mean, to an extent, yes, but I don't think it would be very Milan to change manager again so soon after having replaced Gianpaolo. But certainly, they need a win. They need to validate, I suppose, the performance that they gave against Juventus right before the international break, because we were discussing it on this podcast last week. Easily the best performance we've seen out of them this season.
Well organised, they defended well all around the field. I was surprised in that game they pressed the ball early on against Juventus. They made it difficult for Juventus to play. They stopped Juventus in midfield. And even some of their, what you would call, fragile players, put in good performances defensively.
I mean, I think there's, even in a not good game for Bosnia, it was a reminder of Krunic as a talented player in Bosnia's game against Italy. I thought he played well, probably one of their better performers. There are good players in this team. There is the capability to be good. And in some ways, Napoli at home, it almost feels like about as kind of fixture as you can have right now. Not in its most winnable, because of course playing someone from low down the table is more winnable, but this is the sort of game where you can win it and it could mean something. If you beat Napoli, it feels like a game that can turn your confidence, lift you up a little bit. And Napoli look beatable right now. Napoli are, I mean, it's very frustrating watching them at the moment because, again, the talent is all there, but as we talked about before the international break, the mood has gone so sour. We already had this sort of slight question marks just beginning to be raised about whether Ancelotti has everyone's head in the right place. And then you have the situation where they get sent into retiro by the ownership. They refuse to do it. You have whether it's related or not, because I think Gab spoke well to the fact that we can't assume that a crime is related to something that's happening on the pitch, but you have Alan's house getting broken into. There's so much sort of off-field tension making this situation uncomfortable now, on top of the fact that it's not going well on the pitch, that the whole situation feels very fragile.
I also feel like with Napoli, it does seem a bit like Aurelio Di Laurentiis is now starting sort of like torching everything, like I don't know what's happened about this, but there's now news of a takeover, a potential takeover, and he's demanding 900 million if he was to sell Napoli. Others saying there's absolutely no way that he would sell Napoli. I thought what's interesting as well is that Elmas came out after his international and gave a post-match conference. And immediately afterwards, Napoli and Di Laurentiis said that, he doesn't have a right to speak because we have imposed a media silence. So even a small interview in which he said, Napoli are still in it and everything that was rather flattering, nothing that was upsetting by any stretch of the imagination. And to come out and say, well, it's
all signs.
It's all criticism.
There's massive problems at
But
Napoli.
this is what I mean. I'm like, is this really the right approach to do? The one thing to do right now is to be together. It's to be a team, to sort of show a little bit of love. But right now, it just seems to be like Di Laurentiis is so angry no one's listened to him that he's now imposing his power, even if it means that he might destroy the team in the meantime. As for Milan, I feel like they're actually in a really good moment because after that game, obviously with Juventus, Piatek has gone with Poland. Yeah. They've actually decided to start him in a match against, despite the fact that Lewandowski is on like ridiculous goal scoring run at the moment, but he managed to get a goal. He's seemingly a little bit more confident, and perhaps that he can go. He said one thing that I think is smacks of too much confidence. Well, I found that. You are thinking of the same thing that I'm thinking of. I found it quite objectionable because he's been at Milan for less than a season, and he's currently in quite bad form. And he was the quote that he gave after playing for Poland was that he hopes that the next time he gets sold, he wants to be a 70 million euro player. And first of all, I find that a very odd way to frame your career. You're not saying, I hope to have scored 100 goals. You're saying, I hope to be worth a certain amount of money. And second of all, that implies that you are at a club which frankly, you haven't served well this season.
And you're looking at the next one, yeah.
Yeah,
maybe it was meant differently, but the way it came out, I found a bit off.
Of the three players that you would call their creative players, Suso, Calhanoglu, Paqueta, who do you think is the key player for Milan in that sort of role at the moment?
Well, did you see what happened with Paqueta in Brazil? Now that caused a lot of anger. Obviously, they played differently against Argentina and Saudi Arabia, and he was given the number 10 shirt. He didn't do very well. Chichi came out to defend him, and Rivaldo came out on Twitter saying, you know, this is the number 10 shirt is a very big commitment, and it's a huge thing to give somebody who isn't of that level. Not to say that he can't reach that level, but it's a lot of pressure to put on him already.
So his confidence isn't going to be great coming into this game.
But I think that he is, and I think under Pioli you can see almost that he's coming back to the player that he was last season. I thought he was really a man that shocked us. He made an instant impact at the time under Gattuso. And I feel like with Gianpaolo, he was restricted. He was labelled as an instinctive player. He wasn't
lazy.
Gianpaolo told him to be less Brazilian.
Less Brazilian. I mean, it's almost rude, to be honest, you know. And now under Pioli, perhaps, you know, I thought he was very good again against Juventus. He's come back. Kessie, we know that there is problems there, but he scored, albeit a penalty for Ivory Coast in the internationals. You look at these and you think maybe Pioli can get something out of them because Paqueta deserves a chance. He's low on confidence right now. But I really do think that this is a guy with Piatek that can do something special.
Well, I mean, to answer Stewart's question, I think we've seen a better version of Calhanoglu in some games this season. We've seen a Calhanoglu where you're like, oh,
since
there is
the change
there.
of manager, I would say.
Well, he can't play in midfield. If he can play further forward, he's much better.
I think that I see the potential with that. Suso is fine for what he is, but I mean, we know exactly what Suso is, and he's never going to change. He's not going to evolve. He's not going to give you more than what he gives you.
Because he actually played in Juventus in the first half an hour when they played really well. He played as a centre forward alongside Piatek, and then he ended up drifting back out to the right hand. So that was the formation they were playing. So almost like a front two with Suso playing up front.
And I didn't think it was his natural home.
It wasn't his natural, but what they were able to do was press the ball a little bit better, and that's what got them in the. What about as a holding midfield player?
But Paqueta is the one who, to just finish the answer, Paqueta is the one who has the potential. But Paqueta is the one who, out of those three, if you're asking me, you know, in 2 years' time, who's your bet on? Who's your investment in? It's Paqueta, obviously. So you have to, I think, especially given that this season is basically already a dumpster fire, like you have to put your focus on that and making the most of that.
So the next question. They had in the holding midfield position, Bennacer, who I thought played very well against Juventus, particularly in the second half. Is he the right player? They've had Biglia in there, they've had one or two other, Kessie's played in that role as well. Is Bennacer the best player to play?
Again, he was the player of the tournament at the Cup of Nations. He was horrible under Gianpaolo, and I hope that Pioli can get more from him. But yes, for potential again, I think. I mean,
he's smart. He's smart. I like him. I like Krunic a lot, and I like Paqueta as that midfield.
I like having both of those. Exactly as you've just said it. All three of those.
I think that when you have that three and you don't play Calhanoglu there for some reason, I mean, and I know that Frank Kessie deserves a chance, but really at this moment in time, this is for me a midfield that's actually working right now. And I would stick with it because right now what I think they need more than anything is a little bit of stability.
So the question about Napoli, and it's always the same question with Napoli, who does Ancelotti play up front? Because he's got such a combination now up front. Who's he going to play?
I don't think he necessarily will, but I think on form this season and on the fact that the team is specifically struggling for goals, I find it really hard to justify leaving Milik out of the starting 11 at the moment. I think there's been this tendency to not only use Milik as this sort of off-the-bench option, but this constant sort of flip between, so here's our little man attack, and then when that's not working, we just send them both on together.
With Llorente on as well. And
which isn't necessary.
Milik,
Let him play as a genuine centre forward. Let Lozano start out wide and have the genuine width he has. It means evolving formation.
That means you have to get rid of either Callejon, who's been a great servant for him, or you have to get rid of Insigne.
And Callejon's actually played pretty well recently, but I think
you don't like Insigne.
You're not getting rid of Insigne.
No, I'm not getting rid of Insigne.
But you can drop him for a game.
This is what I mean. I think that they need to go back to the 4-3-3 formation, just purely for the one reason, like you said. I think Lozano needs to play out wide, and I do feel like Milik deserves a chance and a little bit of continuity up there. And Callejon
would benefit from the genuine width. He would benefit from a team playing with width and then funneling the ball into him from wide positions.
Absolutely. And I think that if they go back to that, I mean, Ancelotti always knows what the best tactics are, but right now they are really struggling for goals, and I don't like this whole thing where they end up with these two big guys. But my only issue, if I'm going to put a bet on this, honestly, is the fact that I do think that Napoli always switch it on in 20 minutes, you know. So they have 20 minutes, then they just fall apart, then there's another 20 minutes in there, and, you know. And if their 20 minutes coincides with the very end where Milan tend to fall apart, this is what Milan need to work on, actually maintaining their brilliance up until the end, because it's always in the last 10 that you see they all start making individual errors.
I sense you were sort of half sitting on the fence there. Who's going to win the game? Is it going to be Milan back with Pioli? You know, everybody saying what a good job is.
Because I feel like they've been through so much. You know, that this would be so wonderful for them. But I do think it will be Napoli in the end, because they actually just have better quality.
Nicky?
I agree that Napoli in absolute terms still have more quality, but I think the opposite on the outcome. I think they're just... I slightly believe in the Milan trajectory. I think that performance, you could look at the amount of time Pioli's been there, you think that is enough time to start getting some ideas into the team, and I think you are starting to think about this team differently to how Gianpaolo did. And Napoli, unless something has changed in the international break, I just feel like the mood around that team is not good right now, and I think that is going to continue to manifest itself in the performances in the short term at least, and I hope it isn't going to be something that derails the whole season. But until something gets fixed on an emotional level with that team, I think their performances are going to continue to suffer.
So I accuse you of sitting on the fence. I'm going to sit on the fence. I think it's going to be a draw. There we go.
Do you?
Yeah.
Nicky might have just convinced me. So I don't know. I'm like, oh, maybe I should change my mind.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.